Hello, everybody, and welcome to the very first episode of Smash Through. I am your host, Spencer, and I am joined by my co-host, a man who could now be the best ESS in the world, Matt Klein.
Are we assuming that Mars is retired from
Well,
Zero Suit?
I'm just saying, he's a Joker main now, so, you've got a shot now, Matt. You've got a shot.
That's fair. I haven't seen Kuro play in a long time either, so all the ZSSs are retired.
Yeah, so now, you get to take a sip of coffee and just bask in your ZSS superiority to the rest of the world.
Yeah, there you go.
Zero match wins lifetime, but still because, due to lack of competition, you've just gotten there. Let's get into this. I haven't done an episode 1 of a podcast in a long time. So this will be fun. We're going to introduce ourselves, talk about what this podcast is going to be, go into a main topic, and then kind of wrap it up. Does that sound good to you, Matt?
Yeah, that sounds good.
So, let's start with the podcast. What is Smash Through? Well, Matt, Smash Through was an April Fool's joke in the year 2020 that people really actually wanted. I posted this April Fool's joke that Mason Clark and Spencer Howland were creating an always improving Smash podcast. And people were like, oh my gosh, this is so exciting. People were legit stoked. And I was like, whoa, this is a joke. I'm just kidding. I have no intention of doing this. Well, flash forward a few years, and here we are. So I guess the first question is, why are we doing it monthly, Matt?
Well, I think that for one, there's probably just not enough content for us to do a weekly podcast for this, and I think that also doing it monthly keeps it more of a in the fun space for us rather than just in the chore space.
Yeah, I agree. I think that for one, we're gonna start going to locals here in a bit, and I just don't know that we'll have enough of the always improving content itself, just because of where we're at in Smash to share on a weekly level.
Right.
Now, that being said, I do think that doing this monthly will give us a lot of opportunities to talk about some cool stuff, like when we get our first, when we go out of pools the first time, or when we, having those moments in chunks, I think will give us better content for the show. So,
Yep.
Next thing to talk about is always improving. It's on the logo. It's a huge part of why I enjoy Smash. So I wanted to talk about that first. Hashtag always improving is just like our sister podcast, Constructive Criticism, the Magic the Gathering version of this show. This podcast is about getting better. And just like Constructive Criticism when we started it, you and I had never played on a Pro Tour in Magic the Gathering when we started that. I don't even know if I had won a state championship yet when we started Constructive Criticism, to be honest. I mean, it was so long ago. But one of the things that people really latched onto was this mentality that Yumi and Casey and then Quentin and Michael Hinderocker and we all brought to the table of just these guys from Utah trying to improve at this game. And that's kind of what I want this to be. It's just a chance for me and you to sit down and have real conversations about the ways that we're trying to improve at Smash.
Yeah, and I honestly think that the direction of this podcast will probably be a little bit more fluid than where we started with constructive criticism. I mean, we had a few people on the first episode of CC that just never returned. So
yeah, it's true. I also think that CC we got lucky in a lot of ways too. I mean, not to say we couldn't have MKLAO on, in the first few episodes, but John Finkel was on episode 13 of CC. We were sponsored, pretty quickly and stuff like that. I don't think that that's the trajectory of the show. Like you said, I think for us, this is more fun, about a way for us to talk about how we're going to improve. Speaking of us, who the heck are you, Matt? People joining this, they might have heard you on the fake episode 1 of Smash 3 that we did on Need to Nerd. But,
yeah.
But who are you?
So, I mean, as far as Smash, I would say that I'm just a Wi-Fi warrior at this point. Not even really a tournament grinder. Just I just enjoy playing.
just trying to solidify that roster
Yeah,
on Elite Smash kind of
yeah,
guy.
trying to get all the characters lit up. That's part of the goal.
Yeah. It's funny. Like you come to Smash from a very different. Oh, excuse me, a different area than me, right? Like you played competitive gaming before you played competitive Magic, and for me, competitive Magic the Gathering was like my first real foray into competitive gaming.
Hmm.
Um, you played like really high level, or I don't know how high level it really was, but like you played like high level. Is it both StarCraft and Halo?
Oh, I've certainly been bad at StarCraft all the time.
Oh,
That
okay,
that No, my only competitive like gaming as far as like video games has been Halo. Um, but I was quite good at that. I mean, they had a I forget what the name of the website was now, but they had a like a matchmaking and ranking website, and our team, our very first match, we tried to get a softball match, and the team that we put our skirmish against ended up changing their entire roster right before our match, and they ended up getting ranked two on this particular website. We ended up winning that match
sure.
barely, but
What uh what uh what entices you about competitive gaming?
I think that I've always just been a pretty competitive person, and I really enjoy the aspect of trying to get better at something. Um, kind of tying into our always improving. I think that's uh, I don't know, competing, measuring myself against other people is just the best way for me to see how much progress I've made. So that's what appeals to me about competitive gaming.
Uh, what was your first Smash game? I got a
My first what?
Smash game.
The first one I ever played?
Yeah, like the first one you got into.
Smash 64.
You got to tell that story
But
really quick
it
before.
also wasn't like back when Smash 64 came out. Like what's funny is that I actually bought a Nintendo 64 and just had the game and didn't even know that I owned it.
Sure.
And this was only like
4 years ago, 5 years ago.
I was like probably 7 years ago now.
Sure.
Um, and anyway, my roommate at the time definitely knew what it was and was like, "Oh, we should play some Smash." And like I was like, "Oh, okay, cool." And then we played, and I was getting dumpstered the whole time, and we were playing with items on, and like all the stages and all that. And I think I originally started out playing Samus because I was like, "Oh, Samus is sweet," And then uh, anyway, like maybe 2 days later or whatever, I got tired of losing all the time and just like watched a bunch of professional Smash 64, found out that Pikachu was the best character, and then just like played him for like 12 hours straight, and then never lost another game, and in that household.
That's so dope. Yeah, for me, my original Smash, was 64, which just casually with my cousins, and then Melee at a neighbor's house, where I would just play Roy all the time. And it's funny to like think about how I don't know. For me, like gaming was I was competitive, but like I didn't know that there was competitive gaming. If that makes sense, it was like even like Pokemon Red and Blue. Like I was competitive with my friends. I wanted to beat them, but like I didn't know that there was a Pokemon tournament or whatever. Um, so for me, like it's very much been about, when I picked up Smash, I knew pretty quickly that I was interested in like actually playing the game to some level. I still don't have any aspirations of like being a great smasher, right? Of like, going to Summit or stuff like that. Um, but for me, like the Melee doc, like I watched that and saw I don't know, I saw like the comparisons to uh, the lifestyle of Magic and things like that, and was like, I could get into this. Like this could be fun. A lot of comparisons to the scenes and stuff like that. So for me, like Smash Ultimate, I picked it up and I don't know, it was just really fun. So for me, like Smash Ultimate is like the first time I've ever really tried to play Smash. Like even tried to get better. So
Nice. Yeah, I think that story that I just told about about my original Smash experience really tells you a lot about how I approach any kind of gaming.
Yeah.
Like, I just don't have a casual mode. So, despite me also having no aspirations to go to Summit, that's mostly because I just already understand that that's not a possibility.
Right. It's there's just a level that you can get to, and
Yeah,
it's not that one.
right.
Yeah, we've all watched those guys play. It's you got to just be honest with yourself.
Yeah.
Well, this might be. I mean, just to kind of talk about that, like even we just went to Crown, and I had to wait for a winners match to finish for my losers match to start, and my potential opponent, they were on the feature match area. And as we're standing up, I was like, "Did you have anything that you?" I was talking to Matt, and I was like, "Do you have any like thoughts on what we just watched?" He's like, "Yeah, you're gonna lose." Like,
Yeah.
like you just got to be honest with yourself sometimes. Well, let's talk about how I was improving. Is the point of the show. We're gonna every week we'll be talking about kind of what we're doing to kind of improve this game. And I'll go first, Matt. I don't know. I spent like a good 2 months trying to pick up PT. PT is one of my favorite characters in Ultimate. I thought it was a great combo character to have with Wolf, where my matchup spread would just be really good between the two characters. Um, and man, I think I improved a lot. Like, if there's anything that did for me, it made me a lot better at Smash. Um, but also, like, I just don't flow with Ivysaur very well. And so I decided to drop PT. Like, I just don't think that the Squirtle Charizard main is like a good. It's just not a good main. Um, before I talk about the kind of this, what I'm trying to do is pick a lane. I basically have moved on to being a wolf main for the time being, and trying to pick a new main in the meantime. But I'm kind of curious of your thoughts of just dropping a character just that I clearly love, but I don't jive with.
Yeah, I think that's reasonable. I mean, if you don't love the playstyle that you feel like the character has to fit into, that's certainly enough reason to drop them, in my opinion.
And we'll get into it during our main topic, but I'd love to kind of pick your brain on the characters that I'm looking at and things like that. But for me, the current state of where I'm at in Smash is kind of going through the roster on characters that interest me a lot, that I feel like have the tools, right? To one thing that's nice about having Wolf be my quote unquote main or secondary is it just covers a lot of bases by itself, right? And so I think that it gives me some flexibility and freedom to like try different things. Like if I wanted to try Sheik for a month, right? I don't think that like it's gonna affect my Wolf. That's just not how I play Wolf really. So what about you? What have you been doing to be improving at Smash?
Well, I kind of had like a little bit of an epiphany this week, and it kind of stemmed from I've been playing a little bit of StarCraft this week to try to just try to improve that game because I enjoy it and it's very hard. But the epiphany that I had while practicing some StarCraft stuff is that uh, when you practice something in the lab or like any kind of tech or movement in the lab in Smash, what's really important is getting down to the point where something is muscle memory, and then once you actually have it down, I don't see as much reason to practice it in the lab all the time, as long as it's something that you're doing consistently in games. Like, for instance, roaring is actually not a super intuitive mechanic for most people when they start this game. But when you practice it in the lab enough, you just don't really have to go back to the lab to practice it because of the fact that you're going to be doing that all the time in every game that you play, right? Like basically I get raw practice in literally every game of Smash that I play because it's just such a common mechanic.
Yeah, it's
Um,
funny. I just to jump on that, like, for those who don't know, RAR's reverse aerial rush, uh, and it is something that like for me, I can now just do it, but it is not intuitive to me until like if I haven't played Smash in a long time, I do have to go back in the lab and just like do 10 of them really quick.
mhm.
So
Yeah, I think it's definitely important to get to the point where you're not thinking about what inputs you're doing in the game, as far as doing that kind of attack. But yeah, the same falls for like short hopping. Like most people don't short hop automatically when they first start playing the game, but once you do it enough, you'll just start doing it in games, and then you don't really need to go back to the lab to practice it as long as you're just consciously short hopping in games for a minute, and then eventually doing it subconsciously. The flip side though for Smash specifically is that there are a lot of things that you kind of do need to continue to practice in the lab, like there are a bunch of specific combo setups that are at least difficult enough to execute that it's worth practicing them pretty often, and they don't come up in every single game, right? So you're not going to get that kind of practice in game.
Yeah, it's like movement versus tech, right? Where like some of the tech stuff, like in a lot of ways, RARs are movement more than their tech, right? Like it is tech, but it is just part of the movement of the game. It is a movement option that you have to execute your buttons, right?
Well, I would say most of the movement options can be classified as tech too, right? Like
Yeah,
if you look at like the slingshots or the even like attack canceling or B reversing or wave bouncing or whatever, like as long as you're playing something where you're going to do that pretty often in game, there's just like only a certain amount that you have to practice it in the lab until it becomes a little bit subconscious, and then you
yeah,
can just rely on the game's practice to
yeah.
for those kind of things.
That's a good one. Let's go to our main topic this week. We are talking about picking a main. This podcast is focused on newer Smash players, kind of like us, and people trying to go to their first tournaments and stuff like that. Matt, what is a main in a fighting game?
Well, main is kind of just what it sounds like. It's the character that you play the most, and the one that you are generally going to pick if you're going into a matchup blind.
Who do you main?
I mean Zero Suit Samus.
How did you end up with playing Pikachu in 64, quote unquote, um, where Pikachu is arguably the best character in this game, and don't play Pikachu?
I think that there was a point when I picked Zero Suit when she was debatably the best character in this game for what it's worth.
That's true.
Um, yeah, so I basically started out Smash Ultimate just playing all the characters that I love from 64. Like I'm pretty sure that the first match I ever played with in Smash 64 was with Pikachu.
You mean in
Or sorry,
Ultimate?
in Ultimate. Yes,
Yeah.
in Ultimate. And then I tried some Jigglypuff and some other things, just the characters I love from 64. But I guess I just didn't really click with any of them, and then I watched some Ultimate and saw Palutena, and she was the first one in Ultimate that really clicked with me. So I spent some time playing Palutena, and then
She
I
got
think that,
nerfed.
well, she did get nerfed. That's true. But I even at the time, I think I saw some sets with Zero Suit, and I was like, wow, that looks really sweet. I wish that I could do that, but I was like, this just looks way too hard. There's no way that I could ever play Zero Suit.
Sure.
And anyway, after the Palutena nerfs, and I had been playing for maybe 4 or 5 months at the time, I decided to give Zero Suit a chance, and now I just honestly can't see myself playing anybody else. She just does everything that I want to do.
That's dope. Yeah, like I said, I'm a Wolfbane. I I don't know. I have had a real problem with this topic. Uh, I don't have anybody that I love as much as Matt loves ZSS. And honestly, when I hear people talk about the characters like that they love, I'm like, man, I don't feel that way about anybody on the roster. Um, so it's
I can
interesting.
certainly understand that too. Like if Zero Suit didn't exist, I wouldn't have that. So I mean,
Yeah. I mean, like, even talking to my second round opponent, my loser's opponent, about his D, and like his love for D, I'm like, yeah, I don't click like this with anybody but, like, I don't know, like Greninja and Samus. So and Young Link, which is kind of why they're the characters that I'm looking at maining right now. Um, why have a main though? Like, what's the value in that? Shouldn't I be great with all 80 characters, Matt, and then just play the character that's good against my opponent's character?
well, there is an argument for that, obviously. Like, but the problem is that it's just outside of the humanly viable category. I think, like, for one. if you are playing a matchup, there's a 50-50 chance that you or your opponent are going to know the matchup better, assuming that you're both playing your mains, right? If you are playing whatever the counterpick to your opponent's character is, there's probably, you know, a 90% chance that your opponent just knows the matchup better than you, or higher than that even, if they're playing
Yeah,
their
I
main.
mean, not only will they know it better than you, they'll have played it probably a lot.
Yeah.
So they're playing their best character. You're playing a character specifically to beat their character, and you're probably not the only one that's done this against them.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, people tend to focus on their bad matchups a lot, so you know, every Pikachu probably plays against, you know, Game & Watch pretty regularly.
Yeah. Um, I think one, it makes practice a lot easier to have a main. Like being able to just say, I want to play against this character with my character to understand this matchup. You know, it goes from learning, 80 to the 80th power. I don't know what the math actually works out to here, but having to learn every matchup with every character, right?
Mhm.
To um, as many matchups as you need to learn with one character. Um, I also just think there's so many characters in Ultimate that like not having a main, it makes it tough. Like I've played a lot of K. Rool. K. Rool has not a great matchup chart. I I can't imagine my K. Rool still can beat bad whatever, right? Like
Mhm.
it's just it is it's I think that it's not as black and white as this beats that. Like it's just not how you don't remove the human element that much.
Oh yeah, certainly not. Like it's there's definitely no matchups where you're like, oh, anybody could beat, you know, MKLeo if they just played this matchup, you know. Um, but yeah, it doesn't even have to be as extreme as all that. Like I do think that individual skill is going to be the biggest factor in any matchup. Um,
Let's talk about that because I think that having a main also builds a foundation, right? Like, you know, if you something people often ask me that are Magic players that want to like try Smash is like, how do I pick a main? It's like, or who should I main is another common one, and it's
mhm.
like you should just try characters till you find one you like. The other answer is like, pick a Fundies character, right? Like, if you start playing like a Lucina or a Mario, right? That actually teaches you the game like really well, like the basics of so much of the game. And that can happen with any character though. Like obviously those are some go-tos and telling people to try, right? But like once you've picked that thing, whether it's Mario, Lucina, or I mean, I know my little brother really likes Ridley, and he plays Ridley every time he plays. And I have another little brother who really loves Ike. He plays Ike every time he plays. And now that I'm beating them every time we play, one of the things that comes up is like, okay, well, how do I should I do I need to just pick a different character? And I'm like, no, like you
You
need
just
to
need to
learn
play
how
like a
Ike
thousand
you
hours.
need to learn how Ike moves. Like you can't just side B every move. Now you have to learn like when am I supposed to nair? Where does the back air kill? And once you learn how to do that with one character, then switching mains becomes easier. But like that foundation that you've built on the practice part on that becomes easier on I think that all breaks down into this foundation that can be used elsewhere.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I regularly play pretty much the whole cast, and I do think that no matter who you're playing, you can still learn more about the game. So it's not like you have to be playing your specific character to get better. It does make it easier, and there's obviously specific things to your character that are going to be easier. But I think that there are also plenty of great reasons to choose a main. Like if you just love a character through the lore, I think that's a plenty good reason to choose a main. Like any character that you love, you're going to put the effort into.
Yeah, like my son loves Zelda Breath of the Wild, and all
Mm.
he wants to do is play Link and Ganon and Young Link and like all the Zelda characters all the time. That's all he wants to do. And honestly, like it's made him a lot better at Smash. To like I tried to get him to play Ike, And honestly, like his Link is better than all of his other characters, just because like this 5-year-old just wants to freaking play Link. Um, and I think that if it's good enough a reason for a 5-year-old to improve this game, like in a real meaningful way, like I'm talking like I don't know how good most 5-year-olds are Smash Bros, but like Maxwell could probably beat a lot of them.
I'm sure.
Um, and that's from both, you know, playing with like, people who are trying to get better, and also he does actually stick to those Link characters now.
Mm-hmm.
So there's value in it just for a 5-year-old. I want to break down archetype understandings and the value in picking a main because of this, because I actually have found this to be a weakness of mine because I don't have a long time main, right? Where like archetypes, there are two archetypes that I really struggle with: sorties and brawlers. Like they really mess with me, Matt. And I think that picking a main helps you understand how your main deals with things archetype at an archetype level. And for those who don't know what an archetype is, it kind of breaks down like you've got rangy characters, you've got spacies, you've got brawlers, you've got sorties. Like they're how to compartmentalize characters based on their gameplay mechanics. And for me, like understanding different archetypes has become harder because I played too many characters.
That's interesting. I find that in some ways I kind of feel the opposite sometimes. Like it might have to do with playing a character like Zero Suit that can kind of do it all depending on what you need from her. You know, like she'll like zone people out with her Zaire, and like she can
Yeah.
come in and be aggressive and be campy and everything that she really needs to do. And I find that playing all the other characters kind of gives me a better idea of what role I want Zero Suit to play in different matchups.
It's funny because like Wolf has that same thing, right? Where Wolf is this mid-range character, but can camp you out, has a strong combo game, um, and the truth is like because I like playing Wolf a specific way, it makes
Mm-hmm.
it harder for me to do the things that I need to do against specific archetypes. Like
Mm-hmm.
I will use sorties in this example. You have to play this like campy, ranged, bait and less bait and punish against the swords, and it makes it hard for me with Wolf. Even though on paper, like yeah, Roy and Crom are bad, but they're bad because like they're just faster on the ground, and their
Right.
aerials.
Yeah, they can close the gap.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um. So it's interesting for me in that. So, but like, there's no reason that I should have a problem with like Ike, right? Like, there's just
Mm-hmm.
like yeah, his nair's tough, but like, how does he actually beat Laser? Like, it should be that simple. It's just not fun for me.
Right.
So
I think that's also like completely valid though. Like there are definitely matchups where I find Zero Suit to be unfun, right? Like any matchup like where you just have to like poke with the Zaire and camp out. I'm just like, this is my least favorite version of Zero Suit, but
yeah.
I'll still do it because I like winning.
Um, I wanted to talk about macro and micro when it comes to maining characters, and I think that when you're picking a main, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, you are approaching Smash from a macro level. And then once you have a main, you go down into the micro of your character to learn specific things about specific matchups.
Well, I think even from a macro perspective, right? Like we were just saying, like certain characters can definitely play the game differently from a macro perspective. Um, and sometimes characters will force you to, right? Like let's just say that you're a
Like
snake
Game and
main.
Watch. Oh, okay, sure.
Yeah, that's what I no actually was going right there.
Okay.
So if you're playing Snake and you're playing against Game and Watch, you literally have to play the game differently. You
Yeah.
are no longer a zoner. You are literally gonna
A
have
brawler?
to use all of your you're gonna have to be a brawler.
That's just true of everybody against Game and Watch. Everybody's
Well,
trying to get the knee
really,
off.
It really depends, right? Like I mean, for Zero Suit specifically, like she has the Zaire, right? So
Yeah. I think you're right. I think that like but you have to learn those macros first, right? Like you can't I mean, maybe you don't have to, but the game probably becomes a lot easier when you do. Like understanding the macro of how your approach options as a whole are a macro. How you approach in a matchup to me is a micro.
Interesting. So I was considering micros more like smaller decisions in game, like
Sure, that's definitely true.
yeah, like where does this person jump, or not even necessarily like as far as specific as that, but like what does my character do to catch jumps? What does my character do
Sure.
in this situation?
Yeah, I think we're pretty close to saying the same thing. We're just off by like maybe one level.
Mm-hmm.
Um, let's move on to talking about kind of how we picked our main. I'm gonna go first, Matt.
Okay.
And I just got sick of getting bullied. People make fun of you when you're a K Rool main, and so I had to switch, and I just switched to the character that I won the most with.
Yeah.
That's
I would
not
also
even.
say that
I'm not
you're
even memeing. That's just factual.
no, yeah. I would also say that you're also in the point where you're having to do this again, right? So like it'll be interesting to see where your journey takes you on this particular question.
Yeah, I think that I am more inclined to put in work this time, right?
Mm-hmm.
I put in a lot of work on Wolf to get my Wolf to where it is.
Mm-hmm.
And my Wolf had to improve because you were improving so much with ZSS too. Where like my Wolf was just going to be my best character because I hate losing so much, and like it was just the character that I could beat ZSS with. So like my Wolf was just going to get better, right? But like there have been times, a lot of times where I've been improved at Smash where I could beat my friends with characters like K. Rool, with characters like Samus. Um, the truth is like I don't want to main K. Rool. He's the closest character that I click with. But like I also he has some big flaws. Like the fact that you just touch his back and he dies is like it's really frustrating to have a character that has something that exploitable as a weakness, right? Like, and there's just a lot of characters that can get behind him. So while if I were just gonna say like, oh, pick a character that clicks, like I would just play K. Rool, right? But like, I don't think that's a viable thing to do for like, at least for me. Like I get for my mental game, it's not something that I would enjoy. But
That's totally fair, and I think being real with yourself on that is a big deal. Like, I mean, I sometimes feel that way about Zero Suit too. I'm like, I know what the exploits are for Zero Suit, and occasionally you play against somebody that also knows, and it's just like, man, this matchup got tough. Like, it's so annoying that she just has these glaring weaknesses, but
yeah.
but I think that you can work around them. But like you said, if it's affecting your mental game, if you're going to go out of a match and be like, oh man, it's
Yeah.
I'm so unhappy that this game's so imbalanced or whatever, then that's going to be a problem.
Yeah, so right now I'm kind of focusing on really two characters. It really is basically Greninja and Samus. Greninja is my favorite character in the whole game. Greninja's hard, man. Like it's a hard life to pick if you want to pick Greninja to be your main.
Mm-hmm.
But also like I thought about kind of what we talked about in this episode, right? Like, who's the character that like you love? Like you love. And to me that's Greninja. Who's the character that I think I could probably have be my best character and like I think has a really good matchup spread right now. Can play the game in a lot of different ways. Actually helps me a lot in my personal weaknesses in Smash. It's probably Samus. Like Samus has the ability to play super aggressively. Samus has the ability to play super defensively. She's got a great dash attack in the mid range. She's got the tools, right?
Mm-hmm.
Her out of shield option kills people. Like, both of them. Like the Nair can kill too. But so now it's about kind of picking from there for me. And the way that I'll pick this will probably be. Honestly, it'll probably be which one do I actually have more fun playing,
Mm-hmm.
and part of it will be which one do I have more fun while losing with, because when you switch mains, you just start to lose more naturally. You're going to in a lot of ways.
You told me something interesting recently, which is that every time you find yourself going to the lab, you're always playing Samus.
It's true.
And I think that that is super telling. If it's the character that you are happy to practice, that shows a lot to me.
Yeah, I think it'll end up being Samus, as I think it's evident by the way I just went off about Samus just in this
Yeah,
segment.
right.
Um, but yeah, that's kind of where I'm at in my journey in picking a new main. What did you do to pick your main other than watch Mars on people?
I mean, that's isn't that reason enough? Like how could you possibly watch her flip kick just spike somebody right into the blast zone and not just be hyped? Like I don't understand it. Like if you don't think Zero Suit is the hypest character in the game, watch Genesis 7 finals. Mars versus MK Leo. But
I I
uh,
I think she's hype. I
yeah.
I have to know though, like there were other characters that were like on your thinking of maining them lineup. Whether it was Lucina um or Joker, like
Mm-hmm.
Palutena, you put a ton of hours into. What's what happened?
Well,
Inkling
I think
too.
yeah. And I still like all those characters. I just think that Joker honestly would be my favorite character to love if I just loved a character. And like it's funny because I really like watching high level Jokers. Like I think he's a really sweet character, but the playstyle just doesn't click with me for whatever reason. Um,
I mean, yeah, it's Bad Greninja. I totally understand.
yeah, I don't think it's that necessarily.
I'm just kidding.
Um, yeah, I don't know what it is because he kind of has like a lot of the same things going on as Zero Suit, right? Like he's very bait and punishy and like he has really precise hitboxes and everything, but I don't know. He just doesn't have the wow factor, I guess. Like
And
you rarely feel like you're it's I don't know. Zero Suit has like a little bit of a waft factor, right? Where you're like, oh, she's really behind, but if she just takes this stock, some amount of the time she's just gonna deal 40 damage to her opponent and then nair into flip kick, and that's just the end of the game.
it's true. I mean, I do think that the wall factor, that's a really good point. I did listen to an episode of Tweak Talks where they basically said that Joker's back air was basically WAF. In fact, apparently during a session, that Tweak literally said it's not fair that this character has a spammable WAF.
Sure.
Talking about Joker's back
Yeah. It's true,
So
but only in certain positions on the stage, right? Like waft kills from anywhere. I guess Zero Suit's nair into flip kick technically only kills from the ledge too. So
yeah. Um, I want to talk really quickly about a couple more things, and we can kind of wrap up. Uh, what do you think of thinking about matchup spreads when picking a main? Is that a bad reason to pick a main? A good reason to pick a main?
I honestly don't put that much stock into it. Obviously, I think Zero Suit definitely has a lot of bad matchups at the top tier. So I think it's just what you're willing to deal with, and that is also one good reason to have secondaries. So
Yeah, I think matchup spread is. I'm not gonna go out here and say like it doesn't matter, right? You should not main Ganon or Little Mac unless you like really love those characters. If you're trying to, I don't know, go win a tournament. But like that doesn't mean like Little Mac or Ganon can't win a tournament. They just probably can't win a major. But like, if you're listening to this podcast, you're a long way from winning a major anyway, guys. Like,
yeah.
it's just. So I think it matters. I just don't think it matters when picking your first main. Like I just think that it's.
Yeah, I don't know. Even still, like I think that Peanut has a totally believable path to top eighting a major. Maybe not winning one, but
Sure.
and he's a Little Mac main for those who don't know.
Yeah. I was trying to think of a Ganon, but I could not think of a Ganon that I was.
There's Rickles, right?
Yeah.
And I think he's top 32'd some majors maybe.
Sure.
Like certainly big events. Top eighting gets harder for Ganondorf, I think, but
Yeah, it's.
but who
You know,
knows? Maybe
the thing is-
next month, Leo picks up Ganon, and then we're
It's
like,
well, I
man,
was just gonna.
Ganon needs nerfs.
I was gonna talk about base mage, right? Where like there was just this belief that it was impossible for Jigglypuff in Ultimate, right?
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
then base mage like just comes out of left field, and now it is like the Puff is back, and it's like
Mhm.
I don't know, like
That being said, even with Base Mage and Jigglypuff, right, who has way less glaring weaknesses than Ganon or Little Mac, you'll still see like matchups where you just feel like Base Mage has no chance, right? Like
I mean, we watched
we've
one, right?
watched live him playing against Sonic, Ken Sonic, and it's just he not only doesn't have the ability to beat Sonic with Jigglypuff, but like it's not like he's practiced secondary enough to beat Ken's main, right? Like that's just not going to happen either.
Yeah,
So
it was. He basically
it is going to leave you in some tough spots like that.
He basically only played Puff for the crowd too. Like I don't think there was a world in which.
Oh yeah, he was already dead. Yeah, he was like, all right, whatever.
It's like, all right, game 3, I'm down 0-2.
Yeah.
And the crowd wants the Puff. I'll show them why they're wrong. And then it started with nobody hitting each other for 2 minutes solid. It's just wild. So let's wrap this up because I think to the 2 first questions we would ever get doing this episode are, what is a secondary? You guys have mentioned them a bunch of times. Matt, a secondary is just the secondary character that you have that you'd be willing to pull out in a tournament, really. There are reasons to have secondaries that we could probably do a whole episode on that, whether it's for a specific matchup, whether it's for matchups, whether you're MKLeo and you just have 2 characters that you play, whether you're Tweak and you have 17 characters that you play. Like, there's just people that have secondaries. But I would
say the MKLeo approach isn't even looking that uncommon in Smash right now either, right?
No, I think like most people
Riddles just pulls out Terry and Kazuya randomly, it seems, and like
yeah, I do think that
Proto Banham with Min Min and Lucina.
Yeah, well, I was going to say that I do think that there is a legitimate argument to just having a secondary in this game. Like we were watching the Buzz where what I felt was just completely randomly was picking characters. Like,
yeah, I never know whether he's gonna pick Rosa or Olimar. He's just like, whatever, whichever one's working right now.
I just have no idea.
Yeah.
And then they win with both, and you're like, why did it matter? Like, why did it matter?
I think that set that Proto played against who was it? I can't remember who he was playing against, but he went Lucina and Min Min every other game, regardless of win or lose.
Yeah,
was super informative.
Well, he's not the only one that I've seen do that though. Like, I've seen multiple characters. Actually, I think Tweak did it at a set at Summit where he went, Diddy Wolf Diddy Wolf Diddy, regardless of win or loss. And then afterwards it was like, oh, he didn't want them to get used to the Diddy. The only reason he was switching to Wolf was to keep them on their toes against Diddy.
Right.
Like. It was wild, and
that's a super interesting move, honestly.
So I think there's a lot of reasons to have a secondary, but I think that the fundamentals that you learn from picking a main and sticking with somebody for a little while is super worth it. And then finally, what's a pocket, Matt?
I don't know. How deep is
your pocket? Yeah, I would say I have a pocket K rule. Like, this is not a character I would typically pull out at a tournament. But it is a character that I could pull it out and see give you a little skill check. Let's give you a little skill check. Let's see what happens. I would describe pockets typically in that vein where it's I could do this, but it is very much not the character I've been practicing the most, and it is very much something that would require a pretty unique situation to pull out.
Sure. Is it possible to have a third without having a pocket?
I think so.
Okay.
A tertiary?
Yeah.
You saying I have a tertiary K rule?
No, I'm just saying. I was just asking if you think it's possible to have a third without having a pocket.
I think most people just have multiple secondaries.
Is there a distinction there between multiple
secondaries? It sounds cooler to call it a pocket is the main difference.
Okay.
Yeah. That is going to do it for this week. Why pick a main? What is a main? Any final thoughts you want to say before we go over our monthly wager that we would never bet money on?
I don't know. Nothing final on this topic. I think choosing a main is such a personal topic that if you think you have a good reason to choose somebody as a main, it probably is.
I agree. All right. So you want us to predict the PGR top 10. And you want us to do it in order. We have to get the numbers right.
Yeah, so I was thinking about this, and I think that the best way to do it is to average your score versus where where they actually are placed.
Okay.
So, like, if your character, like, so MK Leo, right? We both have it number 1, obviously.
Yeah.
If he gets number 1, that's a 0, right? Because we're gonna go like golf score, like
Got
however
it.
far
Got
off
it.
your
The lowest. Got it.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Deal. All right. Do you want me to go do mine first?
Yeah, sure. Mine is I'm not sure whose of ours is spicier, but I actually did some research on mine, so I changed up a lot.
Oh, since we talked?
Yes.
Okay.
I did this about 2 hours ago.
Holy crap, you did change yours a lot. All right. Wow. Yeah, so I had Shoots on at 10, T at 9, the Buzz at 8. That one I thought was honestly too high, and then seeing how you changed yours now, I'm interested. I have a Cola at 6, which would be literally the highest for a newcomer since Meister.
Yeah, but Meister was also only 2 PGR lists ago.
Yeah. But I also think that Meister was like a wild thing to happen.
I agree, but have you looked at Akola's
I know, I'm
record?
aware.
It's so much better than Meister's was at the time.
It's way better than Meister's was. Yeah, way better. Tweak at 5. And I think that at least the top 4 to me was undebatable, but you have now even changed that. I have Light at 4, Gluttony at 3, Spargo at 2, and MKLeo at 1.
Yeah, so like I said, I did some research this morning on tournament finishes. The one problem is that it is not obvious if you're doing this in a hurry how big of events they are. So like if you look at somebody's Smash Wiki or whatever, and it has a bunch of first place, they could just be.
You can look at the level of the size of the event in your
regionals.
Smash World Tour.
That's true. I could have done this research better. I'm just saying the way that I did it wasn't the most effective, and I think that keeps it at least interesting, right? Like if I just wanted to add everything up and like kind of do like a power rankings, I could probably honestly just figure out where people were going to be ranked. So anyway, without further ado, I have Shuton at 10.
Same.
Tweak at 9, which is clearly
a
big downgrade from you. I mean, that being said, he doesn't have like a huge amount of big tournament finishes.
He also skipped a bunch of tournaments.
Yeah, we're only looking at the last 4 months, and he has a 33rd and a 17th.
Sure.
Right? So...
and a
9th,
so...
Yeah. 8th, I have Cola. 7th, I have Riddles, which honestly I think might be low. Like, Riddles has actually been crushing it.
Sure.
6th, I have Gluttony. His was not as good as I expected. Like, his performances were not actually that high in the last few months.
Sure.
I think we had some standout ones because he like went finals with Leo into beating Leo in the finals the very next tournament or whatever.
Sure.
But Akola, I mean, his resume kind of speaks for itself. I again, it's hard to see how many of those are like majors versus super majors.
Right? Like...
I mean, honestly, yeah, it's crazy. Like if you just looked, he actually would be number 2, assuming that those were all like majors or super majors.
Yeah.
It's wild. I mean, the only thing going against him is that he only has like 6 or 7 events.
Yeah.
But and also what was interesting is I looked at his resume from the prior 4 months or whatever, and it looked basically the same. It was like all first places. But I assumed that those were smaller events just based on, him not being on the PG already, or at least not in the top 10. Number 4, I have DeBuzz. Number 3, Lights. Number 2, Spargo. Number 1, Leo. And I think number 1 and number 2 are pretty much gimmies. I mean, well, number 1's obviously a gimme. Like Leo's, there's no way that they're putting anybody above Leo. I think it's less than 1% that they put anybody above Spargo. So after that is where it really gets interesting.
It's funny how much a few of these players have moved up. Like my personal, like, oh, these guys are insane. Mm-hmm. Like Gluttony and Light, I think just not only they have improved so much from 3 years ago. Like it is, which is crazy.
In some ways, Gluttony honestly has been losing more tournaments in Europe than he ever has.
Sure, that's true too.
He also has the big disadvantage of, Wario being significantly worse as a character.
Yeah, that's factual. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I think that as somebody who's watched the PGR and watched PGR discussions quite a bit, people value wins a lot. Mm-hmm. And wins over wins over other players in the rankings a lot. Mm-hmm. And I think even PGR cares about that. So I would assume that you have DeBuzz too high.
That is certainly true. They do value that stuff. Although I think DeBuzz has a win on Leo this season, does he not?
Does he?
I'm pretty sure he does.
Okay.
I think that was the reason that I think I might have Shuton high, because I think T beats Shuton like quite a bit when they play.
That could be
So
true.
it's possible that T should be 10 and Shuton should be like 11.
Sure. All right, that is going to do it for the first episode of Smash Through. Thank you, everybody, so much for listening. You can find me at Spencer13H. You can find Matt at The Witch King. You can find the show at Smash Through Pod. And you can find us every week here on the Easy Game Media YouTube channel, as well as everywhere once this goes up on Anchor. So, like, comment, subscribe. Super helpful. If you like this content and you want to sponsor it, shoot us an email over at smashthroughpodcast@gmail.com. Thank you, everybody, so much, and keep smashing through.